Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name's Brianne. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, my pronouns are she, her, and I could go to the Olympics, except I am not good at any of the sports they do in the Olympics, and also I do enjoy weed quite a bit.
Hi, my name's Violet. My pronouns are she, her. I have ADHD, and I'm going to start my own Olympics called the Hooter Olympics, which is just the Olympics, but for people with big old boobies.
Oh my god, do y'all drug test?
No, not at all. In fact, we encourage doping in the Hooter Olympics.
Okay,
So,
I can figure this out. Is crocheting an event?
It is now.
Excellent. My sports streams are alive and well.
Hell yeah.
What are you teaching us about today, Violet?
Well, today we're going to learn about something that I feel like people get really close to being hyped up about, but don't get enough hyped up about, and don't realize how intricate and how interesting it is. We're going to be learning about the Paralympics. If you haven't heard of the Paralympics, you might be going, does she mean the Olympics? No, I do not. So let's say you're an athlete, right? You're like an Olympic level athlete, but you have a disability. You have something that makes you different from the average Joe or Jane or otherwise, right? You have...
If you're non-binary, you're not allowed to be named Joe or Jane.
Well, you can be. Yeah. You can just also be named otherwise. It's kind of the opposite. If your name is John, you can't also be otherwise.
Non-binary name.
Otherwise? Oh.
Hey, what's up? I'm otherwise.
Oh, that's cool, actually. God.
You could call them Wise for short.
Holy shit. Okay. Listen.
And then they could go to a convention where Ray Wise is there.
Oh my God.
And they're like, hey, I'm Ray Wise.
And Rachel Weisz.
And this is Otherwise.
Oh my God. I'm so stoked. Okay, the whole topic has changed.
Our fictional non-binary character named Otherwise.
Yeah.
I love them.
That's dope. Hey, if you're a non-binary person out there trying to figure out your name, go for it. Just tell them we sent you.
Test it out. Let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're talking about the Paralympics today. So you got me excited about this earlier, and I was like, I don't give a shit about the Olympics, like the regular Olympics, like especially because the display this year felt so fucking tone deaf.
Yeah. Because
of the ongoing genocide, and like there was so much at this Olympics where I'm just like, I don't care about this.
Yeah, no.
But the Paralympics, you started telling me about the Paralympics, and now Instagram is like, oh, do you like the Paralympics? And the more and more I watch, I'm like, yeah, I fucking do. This is like the real shit.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I feel like the Paralympics, there are problems with the Paralympics, right? Obviously. Like, this is not going to be a program without its fault. If you can imagine...
And any big institution backed by governments from around the world is obviously not going to be a flawless thing.
Exactly. But there's some really cool stuff in the Paralympics that y'all are just missing out on by honing in on Mickey Phelps or whatever and his fancy bunch of medals. You know how many medals Michael Phelps has, by the way?
I don't know, 69.
Like, I don't know. It's like, I think he's got like 24 gold medals, something like that.
Well, he could have 69. That would be a lot cooler.
There's a Paralympian, also a swimmer, with the most gold medals. You know how many she has?
69.
41.
Hey, that's way closer to 69.
Yeah, honestly. She actually has 55 medals total to her name.
Gosh, she's so close.
Yeah. So Tricia Zorn Hudson, she was born in 1964. She is a swimmer and is the most successful athlete in the history of the Paralympic Games. She has won 55 medals, including 41 gold medals, over 7 Paralympic competitions. Michael Phelps has been to 5 Olympic competitions and has less than half the number of medals total, I believe.
Get good, Phelps.
Yeah. And also a swimmer, by the way.
Yeah,
granted,
get good,
I should
Phelps.
Say, to be fair, there's some different time periods going here. Like, Tricia started in the 80s, right? 1980 specifically. She got a total of 7 gold medals among 7 different events in the 1980 Olympics, which is wild.
Yeah.
In the 1988 Paralympics, she actually got over 10 gold medals among all the different swimming events there. Even among fully abled swimmers, really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
So her disability that qualifies her for the Paralympics is that she is blind genetically. Legally blind, though, is the thing that qualifies. And we're going to get into the qualifications at one point, because that's kind of where the cool stuff of the Paralympics kind of starts to show some cracks, is how you qualify for the Paralympics and like the different categories of each sport. That's something I was telling Brianne about before, was how you may qualify to participate in a Paralympic sport, but there may be subcategories in that particular sport where you get placed. So you have like a gold medal in this specific rank of this specific sport for the Paralympics. There's an attempt to make it fair, which is good, but there are things that fall apart, and we're going to get into that. That's going to be the
human
nitty-gritty.
I think I'm already anticipating that it's human error and
Yes.
probably a healthy dose of ableism, and part of me suspects that it's not disabled people deciding these things.
It's a volunteer position, and you have people of different levels of disability and different experience with the Paralympics in general doing these. But anyway, I want to start with the good stuff.
Yes, you'll start with the good stuff.
I want to start with the good stuff. We'll wrap up with the not so good stuff. I've got a whole list of cool fun facts about the Paralympics. So the first official edition of the Paralympic Games was held in 1960. And at the time, it was known as the Stoke Mandeville Games, which is, the Stoke Mandeville Games. That's named after the Stoke Mandeville Hospital, which is basically a military hospital in North London. Neurologist Sir Ludwig Gutmann was trying to find a way to speed up the recovery of his paraplegic patients, meaning without the use of your legs. So these are people who are all using wheelchairs. These are people who all are trying to find some way to stay fit, stay active without the use of their legs, which they were previously accustomed to, which, you can imagine that's a big change.
Yeah, enormous adjustment.
Absolutely. So what do you do, right? Well, this neurologist is like, hey, let's do modified sports. Let's just do sports where these people can participate on an equal level. Over a couple years, this eventually morphs into the Stoke Mandeville Games, which not too long after became the Paralympic Games. So para is the prefix there, which means alongside or next to in Greek. And then Olympic basically just comes from Olympic, which is, if I recall correctly, it comes from Olympus.
The Olympic Committee is so fucking, especially in the US, litigious about the name Olympics and having Olympic stuff. I was actually just watching a YouTube video from Made in the Moment, the crochet knit fiber artist. Very good. They make very good videos about craft drama on the internet. But they're doing the history of Ravelry, the website. And Ravelry received a cease and desist from the US Olympic Committee something whatever for having their Ravelympics, because it diluted the meaning of the Olympic name something, and they said it was disrespectful and actually really laid into them. But the whole event was no, we're doing this is a speed sweater for speed skating, and we're only allowed to work on it while we watch speed skating, or we'll see if we can finish it, and things that would actually have them turning NBC on to watch the Olympics. So anyway, I've recently learned how litigious they are and about branding.
Yeah, next thing you know, we're going to be calling them the bigger game.
Yeah, you can't say the Super Bowl in ads.
I almost said it.
I'll say it. Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl.
Owl. Oh God, you're going to summon it. It's going to be here, no. The superb owl.
John Madden showed up.
Oh God. Oh jeez. Ooh, he's not looking good.
John Madden.
Anyway, you just sit over there, John Madden. We'll continue the podcast.
John Madden.
Do you know when the Paralympics take place in relation to the Olympics?
I'm trying to remember this year, because this is the first year I was paying the attention I wish I'd been paying the whole time. Is it 2 weeks after?
Yeah, exactly. I say exactly. It's around 2 weeks. There's a little bit of a fudge for weekends and business days and all of that in order to make it work. But essentially 2 weeks is the rule. After the Olympic Games is when the Paralympic Games happen. And since 1988, the Olympic and Paralympic Games have always been held in the same city and at the exact same venues, which I think is really cool. Originally, the Paralympic Games were only for wheelchair users, since originally it was just for those people playing things like wheelchair basketball at the neurology center. It was only intended originally just for those people in wheelchairs to get that exercise that they need. And that's kind of how it stayed for quite some time. That took like not a small amount of time to change. 1976
Whoa.
is when the Paralympic Games, was expanded to include competitors with other forms of disability, including amputations, visual impairments, and all sorts of things. And it has expanded since then. So you know what the symbol is for the Olympic Games, right? It's
The rings,
the 5 rings interlocking. Yeah. Do you know what the Paralympic symbol is?
Also the rings?
Not the rings. They actually have their own separate symbol. The Paralympic Games didn't actually have a logo of their own really until 1988. And in 1988, the Paralympics took place in Seoul, Korea. And for that Paralympics, they had a logo commissioned, which was using a series of kind of like mimicking the Olympic rings, but it was using the taeguk, or the Korean taeguk. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You color it black, red, green, yellow, and blue, just like the Olympic rings, and then you kind of place them like the rings together. That's where you get the original Paralympic symbol. It is a combination of those 5 mimicking the Olympic rings. In order to differentiate more from the Olympics, in 1994, they actually kind of shortened it or removed the black and the gold and just made it green, red, and blue, a kind of triangle of 3 taekuks. And then in 2004, they revised it again. And this was like a whole revision where they said, we're going to get a whole new logo because we're kind of, it seemed odd to me that they were using the symbol based off of this one Korean Paralympic event all this time, which is like, I don't see anything wrong with it, but like they stuck with that logo for like a long time, even though it's like distinctly Korean.
Cutting down on the colors too doesn't make as much sense to me, because the whole point of the Olympic rings is that those colors, every flag in the world has at least one of those included in their flag. So every country is represented in some way, because every country is going to have a flag color that's one of those.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I couldn't find a justification for like why they removed it. I'm looking at the website for the International Paralympic Committee and like their explanation of these. So they don't give an explanation on why they removed them, but they do say that the new motto with this new shortened or smaller logo was mind, body, spirit, which is like, okay, I guess. I don't really get what you're saying with that. It's just sort of 3 words that like are kind of evocative. But
something about that rubs me the wrong way because it's only used for the disabled events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something about that feels kind of like, ooh, how inspirational.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like these are evocative words, but there is no actual meaning here.
Yeah.
You must derive it yourself.
It's like, these are legit top tier athletes. They happen to also be disabled.
Yeah. There is unfortunately quite a long trend of things that work well for the Olympics getting a little half-assed for the Paralympics, in my opinion. And not from the part of the athletes, I should clarify. From the part of the committee, the International Paralympic Committee. I feel like there's a lot of things they could be doing better, and we'll get into that a little bit later. In 2003, they did a little strategic brand review of the Paralympics to try and kind of see how can we differentiate ourselves some more and make ourselves stand out, bring more interest. They hired a public relations company, which was a big move, and they basically took those taekuks, right? And if you can imagine, take the taekuk, right? It's kind of like almost like a tadpole-y kind of shape. Mix it with the Nike swoosh, and then have them kind of like stacked and layered like Pringles. It sounds kind of weird. I'm describing it badly. It's kind of like 3 Nike swooshes that are not fully swooshed.
Interesting.
I would look it up. It's called the Agitos, Agitos. It's kind of a cool logo, I think. And they also came up with a new motto called Spirit in Motion, which I was like, oh, okay, that's more of a motto.
Oh, this is going to sound like I'm shitting on it, but I'm not. But the closest description I can think of is 3 falling fingernail clippings. One is red, one is blue, one is green, and they've fallen at different rates.
I feel like the way that they flow is interesting. I don't feel like it's very distinct. Like it's certainly
Yeah.
not iconic in the same way the Olympic rings are. I think the thing that stands out to me in the design is that I feel like it's representative of kind of the origins of it, in the way that it's like the angled wheels of
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah,
sport
yeah,
wheelchair.
yeah.
That's kind of the vibe that I get from it. It's like it's the arcs on a sport wheelchair with the heavily angled wheels for balance
But
and
like with a
stability,
third
you know,
one.
and turning radius. I don't know.
No,
I don't hate it.
I don't
I feel
hate
like it's
it.
all right.
No. I do like it better than the other one.
Yeah. I
But fingernail
Yeah.
is
Still-
the closest thing I can think of to describe that shape.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had told Brianne about already that I think is really cool is that the Paralympics have some sports that are unique to the Paralympics. And there are several sports that are unique in the sense that there is a sport like it in the Olympics, but this is a modified version. That is almost universally the case. There are some sports where it's like, this is a sport that exists in the Paralympics, but this is had the rules changed so significantly. There's two in particular that I'm thinking of that are so changed, they are their own sport.
This is the shit I'm very excited about.
The two sports in question that I'm thinking of here are Boccia, Goalball.
She got very excited and showed me a video of both of these. And if you have the opportunity, please go look at a video of these. They are so fucking cool. I think
Yeah, they're
I am
honestly
not a person
really cool.
who generally likes watching a lot of sports, but like they both seem like I would enjoy watching them in both very different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like I would go and watch Goalball
That was
any day of
exciting.
the week
It's
before I watch like football.
fast-paced.
Yeah, exactly. I find it especially interesting as a sighted person because Goalball is specifically for people who are visually impaired or blind. The whole idea is that it's a little like soccer, kind of. You have a ball, and it's kind of about the size of a soccer ball, and they've filled it partially with air, but they have bells inside of it. So when it rolls around and moves, you can hear it jingling. So there's a sound element to the game, which normally isn't present in something like soccer. The bells inside the ball help orient the players, indicating the direction of the ball when it's in motion and who has it, where it is, what kind of motion it's doing. There's also marks and like tape along the floor that is raised so that players can orient themselves that way. And the goals themselves are like large padded bars along the top so they can orient themselves that way. It's really interesting. And like I said, as a sighted person, it's hard for me to kind of fathom how they're doing some of these things. And it makes it even more impressive to think of like, oh my gosh, this person just slung a ball across an arena into a goal with 3 people physically laying their bodies in front of it, trying to guard it. And they made the goal.
It would be impressive even if sighted people were doing it. The one thing I thought was cool is that they do have visors to completely block everyone's vision. So depending on how much the players can actually make out shapes and see, and I don't know how much the listeners know about vision loss. I know today's Lucky Winner we have a very lovely, supportive blind audience, but there are different types of vision loss where it can make you see partially some things better or worse than others. Some of it can be gradual, but they've said, okay, everyone here is legally blind, and we're going to make sure everyone is on the same literally the same playing field for this. And everyone is just going to have these very cool Blade Runner looking visors on.
Yeah. They do. They look like techno hacker visors, and they're really neat. And they actually wear something similar, but padded in para football. I was about to say para soccer, but it's
football. You can call it soccer. This is a safe space.
So moving on to Boccia. Boccia is really interesting because it is a game kind of like bocce ball, a little lawn darts-ish, a little curling-ish. There is para curling, by the way, which is a whole thing. But this is different. The aim of Boccia is to throw or bowl, depending on kind of where you're at mobility-wise, balls so that they land as close as possible to a special target ball called the jack. Boccia is open to athletes with severe cerebral palsy or related neurological conditions that are using a wheelchair. All the events are mixed, which I think is really cool. So you have mixed gender which I think is nice to see. It's in sports, which it's still very prevalent to see like gender segregated sports in the Paralympics. Fun fact, para rugby, or wheelchair rugby, I should say, because some of them, when it's a version of the sport catered to Paralympians, it's para the sport. But when it's a more unique sport on its own, they call it just its own name. So like Boccia is Boccia, not para Boccia, because there's no version. For rugby, there is rugby. It's different enough that they just call it wheelchair rugby.
Yeah, and I was watching
some
of the wheelchair rugby stuff. That's one of the things Instagram showed me. That looks so fucking hardcore.
Yeah. They call it death ball.
Yeah, no,
colloquially,
I understand why. Their wheelchairs they use for that look like fucking war rigs from MadMax. And the wheels are big metal discs that are all beat to shit. And I'm like, oh, that's where your hands go. You've had people ramming into where your hands go over and over and over again. Yeah. And you are like fucking flipping people.
You think people that play rugby are tough? Try adding an entire like metal wheelchair, armored metal wheelchair to the mix. Holy shit.
This looks like it would take a tougher person to play wheelchair rugby than to play traditional rugby.
Yeah, which is exactly why it is also a mixed sport, which I think is awesome as fuck. Wheelchair rugby is a mixed sport. I love it. It's awesome. It's so rare to find that in a sport where toughness or strength is measured. They're like, nah, we got to gender it. We got to gender it. Not here, which I think is lovely. So Boccia, similar. All the events are mixed. They feature individual competitions, pair competitions, so like 2v2, and actually full team competitions, kind of like shooting where you have like individual events and then you have like a team score. There's a total of 7 different events in Boccia. It's basically played on a marked court with like a hard surface, but it doesn't take up a whole lot of space to play. But it's very cool, and it can be very like tense to watch. Like it is a little bit more like curling to watch, if that makes sense, where you're like on the edge of your seat waiting for that final shot. But the thing that I think is really cool is that Boccia is one of the sports that allows an assistant or a guide with people depending on the category that you're in. And we're going to get into IPC classifications here in just a little bit. Those are one of the things that I am not a fan of how they do those. IPC classification being the International Paralympic Committee classifications within a sport. You could have 3 classifications within a sport, for example, depending on really how disabled they think you are. It is a tough question to answer. I don't think they're answering it correctly.
Yeah, that's a continuing discussion in the disabled community, because there are times where it is very helpful, either for means like this, which is a very rare exception. Very few people are having to be like, let's, quantify my disability for Olympics. But I think also like with autism, you get labeled with a certain level of support needs. And if you were having your needs met then, people might not guess that correctly. And historically, having abled people try to guess how disabled someone is by disability does not go very well.
Yeah. It is
like,
tough.
I get that. I don't have a good answer. The way we're doing it now is not great.
Yeah. I wish there was a more dynamic system. I have a whole bunch to talk about in regards to that, and I don't want to get too into it now. I want to talk about more about the good stuff. A couple more of the unique aspects of things. Trust me, we're going to get into that. But powerlifting. Yes. I want to touch on that because that's something you actually showed me something from earlier. Yeah. So Paralympic powerlifting is very different from Olympic powerlifting. There's only one form, which is bench press. They don't have like different types. There's no like clean and jerk and all that. It's just bench press. Brianne brought up a good point. If you are a powerlifter in the Paralympics and you are unable to use your legs, that changes the dynamics of how you are lifting.
Yeah, so
massively.
For anyone here who's like, I don't understand why your legs make sense, what is a bench press? Bench press is the thing where someone's laying flat on their back on a bench, and you traditionally see it in any movie that has anyone go to the gym, I think, just immediately says bench press. And that's where they usually have someone standing over them to spot, and you are using your chest to push the weight up and down. When you are bench pressing, though, a lot of your power and your ability to isolate your chest and everything comes from setting yourself up by driving through your feet. Like, I have to plant my feet very firmly on either side of the bench, push through there, and create an arch in my back, which Your back is not supposed to be flat in a bench press, but with powerlifting, you have the arch. Your butt has to be touching the bench still. Some people take that arch too far, but that helps you push the weight upward. Doing a bench press where you're just laying flat with your feet flat, like your legs flat, like straight out in front of you, is so incredibly fucking difficult.
Mm-hmm. Brianne showed me a video of a Paralympian bench pressing. It's wild. I can't even imagine the amount of power that this person is generating, and like the physicality of what they are doing without the ability to push through the ground a person with the use of their legs would.
Or anything.
Holy moly.
No, like nothing.
No wrist strap.
He just went and was like, all right, let me move 500, I think it was like 555 pounds. Let me just move this like it's fucking nothing.
Yeah. Like
without the ability to drive through my feet
and
to help my chest push through.
For Paralympic powerlifting, you have to go from fully extended arms holding the weight,
tap the chest,
touching your chest, back fully out all the way to essentially locked arms, locked elbows.
And he made it look
so much.
He made it look so fucking
I'm tired
easy.
just thinking about it.
He made it look so easy, and he was done, and you would think that he was just at a Lifetime Fitness getting his workout in, and it wasn't. I'm actually an Olympian, and this was 500 something pounds.
Yeah, it is honestly like a sight to behold. Like if you are into like powerlifting and you're like that's an interest of yours, check out Paralympic powerlifting. It is so interesting. Yeah, because like if you think about how like Olympic powerlifters are using every inch of their available body to try and move this massive weight, Paralympians are doing the same thing, but they're doing it differently. And it's so interesting to see the physicality of these people and how they do this. So
like
cool.
I can't
Check
fathom.
It out.
I have if I'm gonna watch anything, I'm probably gonna go look up some Paralympic powerlifting later.
One thing I want to touch on, which I think is really interesting, is we talked about Olympic swimmers and Paralympic swimmers, Trisha Zorn specifically. There's only one Paralympic sport that does not allow people to use a prosthetic of any kind, and that is swimming. You have to swim completely without the aid of like a prosthetic leg or anything like that. And they also mention, I learned a new word, by the way. Do you know what an orthosis is?
I do not. What is that?
So a prosthesis is a replacement for a missing part of your body. An orthosis is a device to correct a part of your body that is either out of place or not moving correctly. So think of like a brace or a support. Orthotic shoes.
Okay. Yes.
And yeah. Orthoses are also not allowed here, which I think is interesting. So like you can't even have like, it's just you in the water, which I think is really interesting. There's a lot of like interesting rules, I think, that make it, they add a level of like complexity almost, but like it in a sense, it also takes away some complexity and really boils it down to just like, hey, how fast can you go? Did you know that there are athletes who have competed in both the Olympic and the Paralympic Games?
That makes sense. Disability is the one marginalized group that you could become a member of at any point in time.
I figured you would know that. Did you also know that there are some Olympians that are at the same time Paralympian?
That makes sense.
I didn't think that was a thing. I didn't know you could participate in both at the same time, but you absolutely can. Just to give a couple examples, this is actually surprisingly common. It's been happening since 1904. There is an American gymnast named George Iser who competed at the 1904 Summer Olympics and won 3 gold medals, 2 silver, and a bronze with a wooden leg.
Very cool.
Yeah, this was prior to the creation of the Paralympics. They were just like, listen, you got a wooden leg, but this dude can jump, so like, let's go.
Autism be damned. So, my girl can work a grill.
Exactly. Even modern day, it's still happening all the time, which I think is really cool. Natalia Partika, and I apologize if I messed that up, she is a Polish para-table tennis player and a table tennis player. She was born without a right hand and forearm, and if you can imagine, right, there's no really, if you think about table tennis, you don't really need 2 hands.
Yeah, I was going to say, it might help you with balance some, but like not absolutely needed.
Exactly. There's actually quite a few sports that are like that allow people with disabilities to participate in the Olympics, not just the Paralympics, and actually do both. Archery is often this way. There are several famous archers who do archery that are paraplegic in wheelchairs. Even in some cases, there are Paralympians, not Olympians, that have no arms and that do archery with only their feet, which is
I saw
amazing.
a bit of that.
There is a really cool 2-time Paralympian from Egypt who plays table tennis. He does not have any arms. He uses his mouth to hold the paddle, which I think is amazing. Yeah. He also uses his foot to serve the ball, the ping pong ball.
Cool.
Yeah. He balances on his foot, kicks it up in the air, and then serves it with his mouth, with the paddle in his mouth, which is just like, yeah, wild. If you ever get a chance, look up Ibrahim Hamadtou. Ibrahim, Hamadtou. He plays table tennis primarily with his mouth and also his feet, which is just amazing. And you may be asking yourself, and we're kind of getting into some of the complex things here, how do you make things balanced? If you are a Paralympian, that is, let's say, let's say you are this person, you don't have arms, you want to play table tennis. There's no other Paralympian that is in the same boat as you. How do they pair you up? How does that work? Well, the answer is it kind of doesn't from what I can glean. So I found an article here that is it's under a pseudonym, and we'll figure out why that is for a good reason. But this is the pseudonym of an adaptive athlete. The pseudonym is Connor Stewart. This article basically talks about how the Paralympic Games are coming to a close in Paris. This article is from just a couple days ago, actually, is when it was posted. According to the person that wrote this article, the goal is to create a level playing field by ensuring that athletes compete against others with similar ability levels. However, this classification system does not accommodate the wide spectrum of disabilities now present in the Games. I personally experienced the system's inadequacies when officials, unable to classify my unique set of impairments, arbitrarily placed me in a category originally intended for athletes with below-knee amputations, despite the fact that I have both of my legs. Yeah, this is because my sport does not have a classification category for athletes with impairment in all 4 limbs, which is my circumstance. I was told that the IPC had not anticipated someone with my level of disability wanting to compete in my sport.
The system may be faulty and they may not have a better system at the moment, but we did not anticipate someone like you to want to compete in this seems antithetical to the whole enterprise. The whole point is that anyone can use their body to the best of their ability to participate in whatever sporting event that we can make open to them. And you're trying to say, I didn't expect someone disabled like you to want to compete in this?
Yeah. They go on to say, this broken system leads to unfair competition, notably chronic illnesses and complex disabilities, which are increasingly common today, are routinely oversimplified during classification. Competitors with these conditions simply do not fit into the existing system that the IPC has put in place and continues to stand behind. Instead, their disabilities are boiled down to the most similar amputation or spinal cord injury. Jesus Christ.
The person is absolutely right, because there are so many reasons a person might not have full use of their arms and legs that have nothing to do with amputation or injury as well. Like, there's so many neurological conditions. There's so many that fucks up anyone who actually has, like, cerebral palsy. You might not have not have full use of those limbs. I get that it would be hard to have a system that actually treats everyone very equitably and, like, they need to work on it.
Yeah.
Like, that is very hard. Like, okay, how much support do you need? That is so hard to quantify. But the phrase, we didn't expect someone basically as disabled as you to want to try. So, whoops, this is the best you get. Which is just an example of the disabled experience everywhere. Like, whoops, we didn't expect you to want to be here. No. We didn't expect you to want to do this. We didn't expect... Oh, no, you showed up. This is the best we got.
Frustratingly, it gets worse. Imagine you are someone with a disability, and you have, from this disability, or adjacent to it, chronic pain. And you need to take medicine to manage your chronic pain.
Are they not allowed to? Is it considered doping?
Let me introduce you to the Therapeutic Use Exemption Application Form.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You have to submit a form to say, yes, I need to use this medication medically, not because I'm trying to get better at my sport. I pulled up the actual PDF form document of this to look and see, okay, what does it ask for? Is it straightforward? Is it simple?
Of course not.
No.
It's paperwork for a disabled person. They have to make it as complicated as possible.
Exactly. So I'm going to just speed talk through this. Evidence confirming the diagnosis must be attached and forwarded with this application. The medical information must include a comprehensive medical history and the results of all relevant examinations, laboratory investigations, and imaging studies. Copies of the original receipt reports or letters should be included when possible. In addition, a short summary that includes the diagnosis, key elements of clinical exams, medical tests, and treatment plan would be helpful. If a permitted medication can be used to treat the medication, please provide justification for the therapeutic use exemption for the prohibited medication instead of the permitted medication. We maintain a series of checklists to assist athletes and physicians in the preparation of complete and submission of these applications.
So tell me, give me your entire medical history, stand before me nude, and prove to me. And then on their approved list, I could almost guarantee someone's like, oh, tramadol is now a scheduled drug in the United States, and I take tramadol for my pain. And they're like, well, our approved list has ibuprofen. Have you tried that? I guarantee their approved list is just the most basic shit where it's like, have you tried taking Tylenol? Like doctors tell people in pain. It's like, yeah, bud, my liver can't handle more. Ooh, that's infuriating.
Yeah. Let's say you do get this exemption and you're saying, all right, I'm qualified to participate in this sport. Then you have to get your para classification test for your sport. And this is not a fun process. This is like for most people from all of these articles, I've seen dozens of articles in researching for this, how not fun this process is. And also, to make it worse, their justification for continuing the process the way they do is that there are people that are like faking their disability or the severity of their disability. Because guess what? If you get a gold medal in, the Paralympics, the US will give you $38,000 if you get a gold medal, right? There's a monetary incentive for people to cheat, which I don't think is a problem, but that number is like 4 times what it was just a few years ago. So the prize money for becoming a Paralympian is going up. You get more people cheating, and there is record of this happening.
That's interesting because I recently learned that there are some countries where if you bring home a gold medal for the Olympics, you basically don't have to worry about having a place to live for the rest of your life.
I actually have a whole chart on that, actually. If you want to make the most money by being an Olympian, you want to go to the Olympics for Singapore.
Oh.
Because they will give you the equivalent of $380,000 US if you get a gold medal. If you get a bronze medal for Singapore, they'll give you $115,000 US.
I just have to come in third in breakdancing?
In terms of like the medal bonuses, right? The payouts that each country gives, the lowest that I could see was Australia, actually. If you get a gold medal for Australia in the frickin' Paralympics, they give you $13,000.
That's nothing. For all of that work?
That's nothing.
For all of your life training for that?
Singapore, $380,000 for a single gold medal.
How many years of work and training and literal blood, sweat, and tears you put into getting good at that? And they give you $13,000?
Exactly. And the U.S. is not very great either. They're $38,000.
Yeah, that sucks.
Like it's not up there. Back to the classification system. So the actual tests to do these are bad. I found an article talking about a Paralympian named Hannah Cockcroft, who is a 5-time Paralympic champion. She, I believe, does cycling, among other things. I'm not entirely sure. The article doesn't quite go too deep into it, but very qualified Paralympian. She said that they had to get MRI scans, CAT scans. They had to have electrodes attached to her spine at one point as part of this classification test, just to make sure that they actually do have cerebral palsy, which is their disability. They say people think you just put your doctor's notes on the table and someone goes, you're what the doctor's notes say. But no, I went into mine and they said, I need you to walk. So I got up and tried to walk and they said, no, I need you to walk properly.
Oh my God.
I said, well, I am walking properly.
Oh my God.
I said, well, I am walking properly. No, we need you to stand up straight. I said, I can't stand up straight. That's my disability. You're going through all these things literally to show that you're not standing there pretending to be disabled. It's humiliating.
I am flabbergasted. Walk properly to the Paralympian.
Yeah. In some cases where you have like a range of motion problem, they will physically try to
Jesus
move your body.
Christ, that's gotta
I've seen in some
that
articles.
has to be so traumatic. Like, just being able to qualify with the medical tests feels like it would be traumatic on its own. That, I feel like, would be such a huge hurdle for me if I were a Paralympian. Like, that would,
Yeah.
to do that, to get to do the sport you love is absolutely
Yeah.
wild.
It's humiliating. And also, they test you more than once. There's multiple testings that they do. I think it's at least twice. I have another article here. Dale Stevenson, who, before his son was born in 2013, Dale Stevenson aspired to be a Paralympic athlete, going so far as to win a silver medal in Boccia in the Canadian Championships in 2012. Stevenson lives with spinal muscular atrophy, a genetic disease that breaks down the nerve cells responsible for sending signals from his brain to his muscles. Despite his success, he felt victimized by the people who classified him to compete in Canada. He said, "I had the distinct feeling of grade school bullying." He said he was asked to stand from the electric scooter he uses to get around. 4 classifiers surrounded him, and one pushed him to the point of falling, he said. Yeah. What the fuck? So the IPC has commented on all of these, and they've basically just said the reports of these things happening are when it's not going correctly.
Yeah, no
They're not
shit.
following our regulations. But yeah, they haven't really commented much, but there is supposedly talk of like reformation of the system,
Yeah,
but it hasn't happened yet.
The idea that they are volunteers and there is not some... If I were someone wanting to be a Paralympian, I would want to know that the people evaluating me are also disabled themselves in some way. And probably also, I would want to know, hey, here's a certain standard of education they've had to go through to have this position. It's not like, not saying, oh, they have to have a medical degree or something. I want to know that they went through understanding what their job is. You know what I mean? Like, I feel, it sounds like I went through more training to be a bartender than these people did for judging whether or not someone can be in the Paralympics.
Let's say you are a top of your class gold medal Paralympian and literally top of your classification. You are the best at this. And then you have to go in for another one of your repeat classifications. And this time, the volunteer assessor decides that you actually should be in the slightly less disabled category, a step up. And now you are a paraskier with one leg competing against paraskiers that are missing hands. And you are no longer like able to compete on the same equal playing field that you should be able to compete in. That has happened. In 2016, American swimmer Sam DeLeve wrote about the risk of being locked out of the sport forever, quote unquote, pending an ineligible classification ruling by the IPC. Ineligible classification saying you are not disabled enough to participate in the Paralympics.
He was, and then they said, no, we decided you're not anymore?
Yeah. And from what I understand, I don't know if he was able to appeal it or not. I actually found a quote from Sam kind of talking more about this, which, by the way, mentions apparently if you get marked as ineligible at one of your classifications, as in like you are not disabled enough to compete in the Paralympics, if that happens twice, you are banned from the sport forever. Like you are just forever ineligible. You can't try to get classified again.
So even if something happens where it's like suddenly I don't have use of my legs, you made me ineligible twice, I have this progressive disability, and now I couldn't compete in that sport even if I wanted to.
Right, exactly. So the quote here, "At issue is the nature of my disability. My primary disability is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which causes hypermobility and joint instability as well as significant pain. I've experienced many joint dislocations, some of which have left me with permanent mobility impairment. I use a wheelchair, cannot bear weight into my legs reliably, and can't get enough independent leg movement to perform flutter or breaststroke kicks. Initiated from the core and fading out as it reaches my legs, my butterfly kick is present but weak. I call it a caterpillar kick.
Oh, that's so
I have a disability." It's so cute. "I have a disability, and that disability presents as a functional limitation on the way I swim. And yet, most of these impairments cannot be taken into account when I reach the classification table. It is possible to class into a Paralympic sport on the basis of secondary impairments, such as the damage caused by my hip dislocations and the muscular issues I experience as a response to my joints' instability. Despite this, I have created enough muscle power adequate to class me into wheelchair racing at the national level, but every time I go to classification, my heart races, not just from my dysautonomia, also disability that can't be taken into account, but because I never know if my secondary disabilities will be enough for me to compete as the disabled athlete I blatantly am."
It is hard when there is necessary categorization of what one's disability is and support need levels. Like, I get that as someone who is having a bunch of support needs met when my autism assessment happened. It looked like I didn't need a lot of support, but when you actually pull back and look at, oh, I've been very fortunate and have had the support I need my whole life. And if a lot of that was taken away, I would be fucked because of how I was classified by someone who talked to me for a few hours.
The thing that makes this even more frustrating is that while some sports have a whole bunch of categories and you can get like classed into the wrong one, for example, athletics, aka track and field, 57 IPC categories.
Whoa.
57. Yeah, for a whole variety of physical, visual, and intellectual impairments with different events based on those categories, right? It's huge. So like there's a lot of chance for getting put into a different class there. However, wheelchair rugby, one gender, one IPC class. Doesn't matter how you are disabled. There's just one IPC class for everyone that does wheelchair rugby, which seems like
the most extreme one.
Right. It's so weird and arbitrary. Powerlifting, one IPC category. It is divided by weight class, but there's one IPC category.
That still does not make any sense that it's just
it doesn't
one
make
class.
Any sense. For things like goalball, it kind of makes sense, right? Because goalball is specifically for people with visual impairments and you're wearing a blindfold. So it's like, okay,
they've
there.
equalized things.
Right. But what if you are blind and also missing a hand?
Yeah, I was going to say, and an amputee.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? But I've got a couple other cool things I want to talk about, because we've already talked about the stinky stuff with the IPC classifications. Wheelchair fencing.
Sounds extremely
very
cool.
freaking cool. How does it work? Yeah, so fencing. It's so much back and forth. I don't know if you've ever watched fencing, but it's like there's a lot of shuffling back and forth.
Yeah,
how do you do that in a wheelchair?
You fiend, you vagabond.
Yeah,
Yes, parry.
You can't really do that in a wheelchair. Interestingly enough, the way wheelchair fencing works is they put the wheelchairs into like a frame that prevents them from moving away or closer to each other. It like locks them in relative distance to each other. Yeah. They start with the blades crossed and then they fence like normal, and you dodge by literally bending your torso backwards out of the way of a strike.
Oh, there's no back to the chair?
No. Yeah. It's like a low back wheelchair.
Whoa,
and your legs are strapped into it. Yeah. And you're dodging and moving your
yourself
torso
out of the fucking way.
It's really cool. And there's a really cool person, by the way, if you want to look up someone who does this and looks really cool doing it. There's an Italian fencer. She's I think 27.
So if you're a raging lesbian like Violet and you like seeing a woman sword fight, you'll really enjoy watching this.
Yeah.
I could see on the look on her face like, yeah, I watched this pretty lady doing a fencing.
You got me. 100%. So her name is Beatrice Vio. Her full name, by the way, she's Italian, is Beatrice Maria Adelaide Marzia Vio Grandis.
Badass. She sounds like she should be good at fencing.
Yeah. Goes by the name Bebe, Bebe, and then Vio is her last name. When she was 11, she got meningitis. But she had already learned how to fence at that point.
Yeah.
She had like baby fencing, right? But she got meningitis. In order to save her life, they had to amputate both her legs at the knee and both of her forearms. She is a quadruple amputee and gold medalist fucking fencer. Cool as hell. Yeah. She has a special prosthetic to hold her fencing foil, so she's fencing from the shoulder, basically, which is really cool. Yeah. And just like super amazing.
Well, very cool. I'm very excited that you have opened up my world to sports I actually care about and would like to watch.
Yeah, I honestly, like this was like a real rabbit hole. Like I went deep down into the rabbit hole on this one. There's so much. It's like if you've never heard of the Olympics and somebody just told you about it for the first time and you're like, oh my God, what is all of this? There's so much here.
Yeah. And just
so
sports
really,
that
really
are
cool.
made specifically for disabled people, that it's like, no. This is our thing. Sighted person?
Yeah.
Goalball is not for you.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning, too, there are several instances throughout history of Paralympians beating Olympic world records.
I have no doubt.
In the same sport, which I think is amazing.
Well, very cool. I'm going to go look up some Paralympic powerlifters. Hi, we're mixing up the housekeeping section. I'm going to first give a shout out to our friends who are at the Lucky Winner and Lil Buddy levels of our Patreon, and say a big thank you to Carl Brooks, Natasha Neves, Laysand, Lutzi, Helen Clifford, B. Trossler, Kelly Brennan, Sewing Sarah, Rachel Rachelson, and Randy Lovings. If you are in a place to support us financially, you can go check out the show details to see a link to our Patreon page where you get bonus content for anything we do now and anything we're going to be doing in the future. The dollar level, which is the starting level for our Patreon, gets you access to our Discord server where Violet and I do fun stuff like streams of Squirrel with a Gun, which we did last week, which is a game that is exactly what it sounds like, and we had a really fun time. If you're not in a place to support us financially, I completely understand, and you still want to help us, you can tell people about the show. Tell your grandma, your dentist, your Uber driver, tell anybody who seems interested. Post about the show on social media. The more y'all help us promote, the more we can grow, the more cool shows we have the capacity and time and space to do, so that helps us a lot. If you haven't left a review or a rating, leaving us a cute little review or rating helps people know what they're getting into with the show. It helps the algorithms recommend us to more of the right people. You can also subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. This also helps the algo know that people care about this show, and it'll show us to folks listening to, related shows they might also be subscribed to. If you'd like to see what Violet and I are up to on the internet outside of doing this show, you can go to the show details and see a link to our social media. But yeah, I think that is all I have for you today, my friends. Until next time, clever sign off.